So in the United States, about a third of U.S. Midlife deaths are going to come from cancer. This is more likely in lower socioeconomic status groups. So if you're poor, you're more likely to die of cancer than if you are middle to higher income SES. Why is that? Is because poor people don't tend to have good health insurance, if they have health insurance at all. They also do not tend to go to the doctor until they have an emergency because they can't afford it. So if you're middle to upper income, you're more likely to have better health insurance. You're more likely to go to the doctor for normal checkups. Even if there's just something small, you're more likely to go to the doctor and see what's going on. And so cancer is caught early. The earlier we catch cancer, the more curable it is. Since lower SES people don't tend to go until there's a big problem present, we don't tend to catch cancer in the poorer populations until it's at like stage 3, stage 4, and survival is much lower. So if we had better healthcare in our country, if we had more accessibility to healthcare, then we would have much lower deaths from cancer. The absolute number one reason why we have people dying in their 50 to 60s from cancer is because it's not caught early enough. And it's mostly not caught early enough from our lower SES groups, just period. Right? A lot of cancers can be put into remission if caught early enough. We just don't catch them early enough. So again, cardiovascular disease is going to be about 25% of middle-aged deaths, which is increasing. Symptoms, obviously, if you've had a heart attack, if you've had arrhythmia, which is irregular heartbeat, angina, which is chest pain. Now, these symptoms tend to be more for males than for females. Not all females, when they're having a heart attack, will experience the chest pain or the left arm pain. For women, sometimes stroke and heart attack shows up as a headache. It can show up as a toothache. It can show up as excessive fatigue. So there's very different symptoms. It's just that cardiovascular disease has been kind of exclusively only studied in men with men's symptomology. And so that's what we kind of think about when we think about what a heart attack looks like. But for women, it can look very different. Risk conditions for cardiovascular disease are having high blood pressure, high cholesterol, arthro, atherosclerosis. I can't say that. I promise I'm not drunk yet, guys. Um, that's a hardening of your arteries, by the way, the word I'm having trouble saying today. As your arteries start to harden, it's harder to pass blood through them, and then that obviously is going to give you a likelihood of a heart attack. All right, let's just move on. Osteoporosis. There's a word I can say. All right, so osteoporosis is severe bone loss, fragile bones, likelihood of a break, right? Things happening like that. As you get older, you're more likely to experience osteoporosis. And as we get older, bone breaks can become life-threatening, especially if they are severe enough and they, puncture, something inside of us. Sorry, coffee break. All right. So causes normal aging, just as we get older, just more likely to happen. With the drop in estrogen with menopause, that speeds up our loss of bone mass. Thanks a lot to our uterus yet again. Heredity. That's a big one. If women in your family or men in your family experience osteoporosis, you are much more likely to have it. So kind of know your family history. The bigger you are, the more likely you are to experience osteoporosis as well. And tiny people don't tend to have it as often as larger people, but you can as well. I come from a family of very small, tiny, less than 5 feet tall people, and almost all of my great aunties had osteoporosis. They just slowly over time turned into little walking question marks. And your lifestyle, right? Again, are you doing that exercise? Are you going for walks? Are you doing weightlifting? Are you eating green leafy vegetables that have a lot of calcium in them? Um, Women do tend to develop osteoporosis earlier in life than men do, but men can get osteoporosis. They do tend to be overlooked, though, because it is a mostly female disease. But men absolutely can also get osteoporosis and should be checked for it. So to prevent and treat osteoporosis, you got to be lifting weights like this lady. She's hardcore. She ain't taking your excuses. So diet, you want to have good vitamin D and calcium. So taking a vitamin D and calcium pill is okay, but it's not great though. So you do want to you take the supplement because it can help you a little bit, but supplements don't help us a whole lot. You really want to get it in your diet. So you want to be eating foods that are rich in vitamin D and calcium. So enriched, dairy products are good, but one of the best one is those green leafy vegetables. Like they have everything you need pretty much for survival in them. Kale, spinach, collard greens, mustard greens. So all these things are so, so good for you and they have a lot of calcium and a lot of vitamin D and things that can really help with your bone strength. They also have antioxidants, which we'll talk about later. You don't want to smoke, obviously. Just no one should be doing that anymore. Do those weight-bearing exercises. What's that mean? It means an exercise where you are bearing your own weight. Walking, running, riding a bike, jumping jacks, hopscotch, like pretty much anything other than swimming is a weight-bearing exercise. Swimming's a great exercise, great cardio exercise. Not saying not to swim, but swimming doesn't help your bones. So you want to do exercise where you are actually having to hold yourself up in some way is going to help you to keep your bones nice and strong. Doing strength training, right? Making sure that you are doing that resistance training, doing weights, whatever. You don't have to have, fancy weights. You can use, your big can of refried beans from the pantry. Doesn't matter. Anything you can do to kind of keep your muscle strength up is also going to help your bones. And then we do have bone strengthening medications available that you can take usually just once a month that are going to help to slow down that bone loss. All right, so hostility is something that we've been studying for the past couple years now, or past couple of decades, I should say. I was studying it back in like 2001, 2002. It has a really big impact on your health. And the good news is that we can change hostility. So if you're a hostile person, we can get you to be less hostile, which is a good thing because it's a personality trait that we can change, and if you do have it, it can be very bad for your health. So expressed hostility is having like frequent angry outbursts, being rude to people, feeling contempt for people, being really disagreeable, and both your verbal and nonverbal behavior, right? Having road rage, getting mad at everybody all the time. Rawr. Back when school used to be in and I would be dropping my child off in the carpool lane, I would have some expressed hostility at the people who don't understand the very basic thing of dropping your child off. And then I would tell myself, expressed hostility is bad for your health, Tracy. And I would try to stop, but then I wouldn't because I hate them because it's really not that hard. You just pull up, your kid gets out, the end. Why can't they do it? I don't know. Deep breaths. Okay. So if you're experienced expressed hostility a lot and you're just a disagreeable, rude, angry person, it actually has a very big impact on your overall health, especially your cardiovascular health. So it leads to cardiovascular problems. You do tend to have more health complaints and you do show more unhealthy behaviors when you have, high amounts of hostility. So when I was in graduate school, I was studying hostility and cardiovascular health, and I was using a longitudinal study, and I was able to track people who had a lot of hostility over time, people who had very little hostility over time, and their cardiovascular symptomology over time. And these were older adults. And those adults with the higher levels of hostility had way more cardiovascular symptoms across time, and they were more likely to be dead at the end of the study than the people that had lower hostility levels. All right, now does hostility, kill you? No, but there is definitely a correlation between that, carrying around that kind of anger and it leading to cardiovascular issues. So if you are that kind of person who is like rawr, angry, or you know someone who is, learning how to have anger management and be calm and, maybe using some, you know, uh, training and meditation and things like that can help you be healthier and live longer. All right, so we do see as we move through life, especially as we get over the age of 40, that there is definitely a double standard of aging. Aging men tend to be really rated much more positively than aging women, and as a woman gets older, she tends to be rated much more negatively by kind of just the general population. So the example that I like to give on this is hair coloring. So if you look at the commercials for hair coloring, right? For women, it's always like, get rid of the gray, hide your roots, right? Have this natural looking color, blah, blah, blah. But for men, it's always like, slowly reduce your gray or touch of gray, right? There's literally a hair care for men called touch of gray, just for men, not for women, because women aren't allowed to have a touch of gray. They need to show no gray because then they're old and gross and no one likes them. But for a man, having that little bit of gray, right, makes them seem like, oh, they're wise and they're a silver fox. Right? It's a very different standard of aging for men and for women. Botox commercials, almost exclusively aimed towards women, right? Plastic surgery, almost exclusively aimed towards women, right? Keep looking young. Don't let them know how old you are. Hide all these anti-aging creams, right? Women, women, women. They're all geared towards women because our society tells us that women should look young. And if you don't look young, then you aren't worth anything anymore. But men, oh, looking older, well, you're very esteemed. No, look at you, the older man who knows so much. So there may be some evolutionary roots in that. If you're an old dude, then that means like you obviously know how to survive and can, I don't know, find the best woolly mammoth meat. And if you're an older lady, you can't have babies anymore. So what good are you? Thanks, evolution. Yeah, but a lot of it comes from the media and social messages, right? Because it's not in all cultures. And in many cultures, the older woman is seen as, the wise person, within the culture, the one that we go to. It's seen as that you're revered for living that long and, and knowing that you know more than other people know, and we should go to you for advice. But not in America so much. So it is declining slowly, slowly, very, very slowly. Um, we are starting to have some more kind of positive role models like Betty White, who everyone loves. But we still see that, those young actresses getting the roles over older actresses, right? But the older guys are still getting these roles with these, super young chicks. This 50-year-old actor whose love interest in the movie is 22 years old, right? Gross. All right, so let's talk a little bit about fluid and crystallized intelligence. So our fluid intelligence is our information processing speed and skills. So it's just pretty much how quickly can we take in information, use it, put it back out again. How quickly can we analyze a situation, work with what we have going right now. So fluid intelligence, a lot of that is genetic. It's just we're kind of born with it. Um, and some people just kind of have more or are faster with their fluid intelligence than others. Crystallized intelligence is accumulated knowledge. So this is what we've kind of grown over time. So think about fluid as like kind of constantly moving, what we're constantly working with, and crystallized is we're growing that knowledge just like crystals grow in a cave over time. So you have more crystals, the more knowledge that you have. So it's your experiences, with that comes the ability to make better judgments, having a mastery of social conventions, right? Knowing when you're supposed to do things. That's why you still kind of call your mom sometimes to say, oh, do I need to bring a gift to this? Or, should I send a thank you card for, because moms know the kind of those social conventions and what you're supposed to do because they've got this crystallized stuff over time. Um, so everyone has crystallized intelligence, right? Everyone has learned different things throughout time. It may be, you can get it through books, you can get it through experiences, you can get it through going through school, you can get it through, any way. It's just all the stuff that you know is your crystallized intelligence. So that's going to continue to grow over time. Your fluid intelligence tends to stay kind of the same level for a while until we get older and it's going to slow down a little bit. But we do see that fluid intelligence does kind of be at its peak around 40 to 50 when you kind of really understand how to use new information and incorporate it and do all this kind of, good stuff with it. All right, so what about the people who are going back to school and becoming a student at midlife? Now, I always have what we call our non-traditional students every year, and truthfully, they are almost always my best students, I gotta say, because they really know why they're in college and that how important it is to have a good education. And they really do care about their education a lot. Not that the others of you don't, I'm just saying in general. So 45% of our college students are over the age of 25, which, technically makes them non-traditional. And most non-traditional students that return are women. And a lot of this has to do with women are more likely to have dropped out or not gone to college because they got married and had kids, and they decided that they wanted to, stay home and take care of their kids, or go to work without going to college. And then their kids get a little bit older, and they say, you know what, it's time for me now, and they go back to school. People also come back to college because they want a job change. They want to make more money, right? They aren't happy with the career that they have, and so they're going to go get themselves a new one. They may be going through a life transition. Maybe they got divorced and they realize that they need to be able to support their family better with a better paying job. It could just be personal achievement. You just want to finish, right? You're just like, it's important to me to have this college degree. Maybe it's not because I want to get a job with it or anything else. I just want to say I am a college graduate. A lot of concerns that we see with our non-traditional students are, do I have the academic abilities that I need? Right? It is easier to just keep going, don't stop, right? To go, 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 go all the way through. So if you haven't been in school for 10 years or more, it can be hard to remember, like, how do I study? How do I take notes, right? How do I do this? Especially math. Math is always people's scariest subject to come back to because you haven't done algebra level math, in 20 years. It's pretty scary to have to jump back into that. Um, Stereotypes, such little gender aging stereotypes, right? People, you can have all these young kids in class, and there you are, in your 40s or 50s, like, hi, I'm as old as your mom is. Uh, that can feel a little weird, right? But I always tell my students, say, if we're doing a group project, who went on that group? The mom, right? She's going to have the time management skills down. You also can experience role overload because you're also, being a wife usually, being a mom usually, maybe still taking care of your own parents, right? Having to worry about getting your kids' work done, everything else. I know a lot of you are struggling with that right now. Being home, trying to get your work done for your classes and helping your kids do their schoolwork and, not having everyone go crazy in lockdown. It can be a lot. It can be a lot of role overload, which can be very difficult if you are a non-traditional student.